Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies coming at you with another Astra Militarum painting guide. Like I said in previous videos, Games Workshop very kindly sent me out the new Astra Militarum army box that just got released. And I've been ticking away on the videos, so you guys will be able to paint up your box when you get your hands on it in the next couple of days. The unit that I'm going to be focusing on in this particular video is the Field Ordnance Battery, one of the new units brought out for Astra Militarum, excluding the kind of heavy artillery that comes for Krieg, which is kind of the same thing. I've already played with these in a game, and I must say they are absolutely fantastic, and I cannot wait to get my hands on a couple of more boxes of these when the general release happens, so that I can bolster my artillery ranks. So this video is going to focus on quick and easy ways to get your Field Ordnance batteries on the table without too much hassle. So stick around guys, enjoy the video. And these are the parts I'm going to be focusing on in this video, the actual field artillery guns themselves, these pieces. After construction, I just gave them a coat of Chaos Black spray. I have already painted the crews of these. I'll put a link at the top of the screen now on how to paint Cadian infantry. Just follow that tutorial to paint up your basic Cadian infantry. And I've already gotten their bases done. And I will once again put another link at the top of the story now on how I did the duckboard bases and how I'm going to match these into my other guard armies. So without further ado, let's get stuck into painting the actual field ordnance guns. And for this, we are going to be using the same technique I used for the Sentinel, and I will be using for all of my guard tanks moving forward in my Krieg army. So we're going to start with a base paint of Castellan Green. And we are basically going to use I'm using the Artist Opus Drybrush series here, and we're going to be using the stippling technique to give that nice mottled armor effect to the gun shield and the kind of bracing arms of these field artillery guns. I don't want a smooth coat of flat green paint I find on large pieces of armored miniatures. They just make them look like toys. So I much prefer that kind of rough and ready, the look that a couple of soldiers out on campaign had to repaint this thing a bunch of times to cover up all the scrapes and dents and stuff like that. And with that, it's just going to be this stippling technique done in a couple of layers, getting slightly brighter each time. And it really does give this really nice kind of three-dimensional paint effect. So we're going to jump up to Waagh Flesh, and we're going to do exactly the same technique again, just going a little lighter this time. As you can see, the difference in paint color is negligible. It's hard to notice, but I will show you this gun versus the other gun before I go on to the next stage, so you can see the difference between the two coats of paint. And the subtleties in the mottled effect does actually come across quite nicely at the end. I'm only showing you this on the gun shield, but as you can see, I'm going on and painting the legs that go behind this thing, obviously behind the gun shield and all those other bits and pieces. So the one on the right has a second coat on it, the one on the left does not. So as you can see, one is more like a dark browny green, and then one is finally going up into like a military green look. But we're not quite done there. We're going to go up one more coat of green, and that means we're going to jump to Loren Forest. And this will be the final green paint that I hit the armor panels with. That does not mean that we are finished with the armor panels. Like I said, these are rough and ready military vehicles. We're going to be doing some pretty cool weathering on them at the end of the video. And as these look a little bit harsh now, but as they dry, it actually goes much more subtle. I'm really happy with this at this point. After I did the Sentinel, I was really excited to do a tank, so I may do a Lehman Russ very quickly in this tutorial series, just so I can actually bolster a Cadian tank in my force. Abaddon Black was then used for all of the black parts in this miniature, so most of the housing and casing on the actual cannon itself is done with black. The actual barrel itself is silver, but most of the casing is black, apart from the breeching housing bit at the back. Of course, we're going to re-black in the tires as we've hit them with the green, and then the kind of stabilization plates that get rolled down from the front and the legs of this thing, we also black those pieces out as well. After that, we're going to move over to silver. After this, we're going to go to Iron Hand Steel, and this is for all of the other metallic parts of the miniature. So that, of course, like I said previously, is the barrel of the cannon itself. And then there's a thing that is kind of like a scope on top, but it's not actually a scope. I'm not actually sure what it's for. And then just things like bolts and rivets and the plate that the gunner sits on, the strut that comes up where he kind of rotates it and stuff, all those bits and pieces will go silver. I once again pulled up the 360 on the Games Workshop website and had a look around the miniature as I was painting it, just to make sure I was hitting all the parts that I wanted to and making sure I didn't miss any parts that I would regret later on. So these are the parts that I managed to do silver, you know, the Aquila on the front of the gun shield and some of the cabling and just some simple pieces, but that's all of the kind of primary colors that are now on the artillery guns themselves. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try and add a bit more depth to the silver and the black. So I'm going to go to a trusty shade. We're going to go for Nuln Oil. And like I said, we're going to apply that to all of the metallic and black parts of this miniature. We're not going to hit the green. Although if we hit the green a little bit, it won't matter too much at all. But do your best not to. And this will just quickly shade down these kind of flat colors and give us something really nice to layer up from. As you can see in the start of this video, I am going with the duckboard style bases. These are the same basing scheme I went for with my Krieg, because I'm going to do all of my guard armies based the same and basically do them as one big grand Imperial Guard army, and I'm very excited to see what that result looks like. When the shade is dry, we went for Corvus Black, and then we layered up all those parts we did black earlier in the video. So the housing of the cannon, the case on the little screen that the gunner looks at when he's about to fire, some of the struts. We left the tires actually dark, and we don't want to give those up to that kind of grey black because that's not really what tires look like. We then went back to iron hand steel and we layered up with all the metallic parts. As you can see, I'm doing basically like a feathering technique. I'm not doing the underneath of the barrels or underneath of any of the parts. It's just the more raised parts that are pointed towards the sky and the light that we want to add a quick layer to, just to brighten it up. Okay, that's basically the paint applied to all of these parts. And the next stage is going to be adding some of the details we need to put on before weathering. So in this case, what I mean by that is, of course, the transfers. So as you can see, I've already been using some of the new Cadian transfer sheet parts. I have numbered the gun crews themselves. So one crew has 2 written on all their shoulder pads, and obviously this is their gun. And one team has 3 on all their shoulder pads, so we've gone for a 3 mark across the second one. Now it's time to actually weather it. So I'm going to be doing my trusty sponge technique. So I've got a bit of old case foam here. I've dipped it in a little bit of black paint and I've wiped off the majority. And as you can see, I'm just going to kind of stipple back over the green armor panels. And this will give that impression of the kind of chipped paint, whether that's from shrapnel or whether that's like rub damage or whether that's just wear and tear from being dragged around a war zone for God only knows how many years. You know, these things are being transported around. They're just hooked up to the back of a Chimera and towed behind them. So I'm sure there's going to be a bit of damage. After you do the black, you're going to do exactly the same technique, but with a bit of silver. And when I get to the silver technique, I really do like to focus around the edges. Once again, it's just going to add that nice weathered, scuffed look to the gun shield and make it not that kind of pristine Space Marine looking vehicle. It is a piece of military equipment, and that's how I want it to look. So with all those bits done, the only thing that's left to do is any of the kind of glow bits that won't be affected by weathering. So obviously there's a lens here in the gun shield and a little light beside it. So all I'm going to do with those is hit those with your preferred white, whatever white paint you're happiest with. And then of course the screen that's on the arm that the gunner looks at, I'm going to paint that in with a bit of white as well. When these bits are dry, we are just going to move across to some contrast and make those bits look like they are glowing. So for the front of the gun shield, we just got a little bit of Blood Angel's red contrast. And we just painted it over those bits. One single coat is all that was required to give the result that I was happy with. And then after that, we moved over to Warp Lightning. And I painted that on the screen at the back. I was kind of going to go for that kind of like radar look. If I could have spent more time, I might have drawn something on it, but frankly, that's not really my style of painting. I like getting things done. So one coat of Warp Lightning across the screen, and I call the guns finished. Now it's time to put my kind of 3 pieces all together and actually create these guns, which I was so excited to do after so long of kind of seeing them in their component parts and painting up all the different bits separate. I was super excited to see the final result. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to assemble these bits and pieces and then show you the artillery guns as a final piece. As you can see, we have gun 2 and gun 3 in my new Cadian regiment. I absolutely love the result. I think there's a lot of character in these pieces now. I think the base really helps to sell what they are and where they would be deployed and how they would be fighting in the Guard army. Like I said, I do hope to get more of these guys in the future and build the other 2 variants that is possible to build with them. And I hope you guys learned something from the video, something you can take away from it. Like I said, this video basically ties in 3 separate videos, so I hope you've learned something from one of them. And there we have it, guys. 1 Field Ordnance Battery painted up and ready for the tabletop. I hope you guys learned a thing or 2 in this video. I think the results speak for themselves. I'm very happy with how they've turned out so far. And I hope you guys will be able to get your Field Ordnance Batteries on the table quickly and efficiently. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like. If you have any questions about anything I did in this video or any other video, make sure you put in the comments below and I will get back to each and every one of you guys. And if you really like what I do and want to support me, the 2 best ways you can do that is 1, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. It really does help. And 2, if you really want to see me grow even further, there's links to things like my Patreon below. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.